The next function we're going to look at is a function to sum all of the elements in a list. We are assured that the elements are all numeric, and we need to step through them and add them all up and return the sum. So in this case, we want to look at the 1 and add it to a total, look at the 2, add it, now we got 3, add 3, now we got 6, add 4, now we got 10, add 5, now we got 15. So we need to have a loop that steps through the list, and we need to have an accumulator variable that will add up the totals as we go through the list. So let's flip back over to Python, and this function is going to be called sum. We're going to pass in a list. Let's call it a list, and to let Python know that that's a list, we'll initialize it to an empty list by just putting the square brackets there. And now I need another variable called total. You can probably use sum as a variable name here, but I think it can be confusing sometimes to have a variable that has the same name as a function. So I'm going to use total instead. And then what I want to do is I want to, for every n in my list, so every time through the list, n is going to take on the next value in the list. I want to add that onto total. So total plus equals n. And then when I get done, I just want to return, I spell it right though, total. Okay, so let's go down here. And let's get this statement and copy it, and let's paste it in. So we should get the number 15 when we do this. Let's go ahead and run it, and the last number down here should be 15, and it is. Our next function is a function called average. It will accept one argument, which is a list whose elements are all numeric, and return the average of the elements. So let's flip over to our Python editor, and let's write a function called average. So we're going to define the function. Its name is average, and we're going to pass in one argument. It's going to be a list. We're going to let Python know it's a list by initializing it to the empty list. So to find the average, first I have to sum everything that's on the list and then divide by the length of the list. Well, I just wrote a function called sum. I don't need to do that again. So I'm going to return the sum of a list divided by the length of a list. And whoops, I didn't mean to do that. I wanted to get my returns down here. And if we flip back over here, we can get our print statement so we don't have to write it ourselves. And we paste it in, and it says we should get 3.5 when we add all of those numbers up and divide by 6. Let's go ahead and run it, and we do get 3.5. Our next function is a variation on the sum function that we wrote earlier, but it's a little bit trickier. We're going to accept a list whose elements may or may not be numeric, and it returns the sum of only the numeric items. The only way that we know of to determine if something is numeric is to use the built-in string method called isNumeric. That only works on strings. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to look at this, convert it to a string, and then see if it's numeric. And then when we get to these numbers here, we're going to have to convert those to strings and see if they're numeric. Okay, so it's going to be sum numeric is the name of our function. So let's go over here and let's start writing that function. So what I want to do is I want to go through every item and add it up. So I'm going to need another total variable. Again, set equal to 0. And for every item in my list, I want to see if, convert it to a string and see if it's numeric. So if the string value of n, so I convert to a string, and then I can do dot, and I can see if it is numeric. And that's a function, so don't forget to put the parentheses on the end. If that is equal to true, then I want to add it to my total. So total plus equals n, and that's it. This is almost exactly the same as this up here, except we've got an if statement here where we convert it to a string so we can use the isNumeric function. And if it is numeric, then we add it on. If it's not numeric, we don't do anything. So when we get to the end here, we just return total. And if we go here and copy this command and add it on to the bottom here, it says we should get 30, 5 plus 10 plus 15, and it's just going to ignore these. Let's go ahead and run it, see if we get 30 for our last output, and we do. And we're going to stop there, and we will continue with the other ones later.